Hello, thank you for joining this webinar covering how SignalPro version 9 is changing the industry. My name is Rory Fox, and in a few moments, Bob Akins will go over the new features and licensing options for SignalPro 9.0. We will discuss how this new release was designed to help your business focus on growth and productivity. SignalPro 9.0 introduces licensing on a monthly and prepaid days per year basis. Today, you will learn how to leverage these new options, as well as the many new features focused on productivity and network design accuracy. If you have any questions during this webinar, you can use the webinar pane on your screen to submit them, and we will answer them towards the end of the webinar. Bob, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Rory, and I want to sincerely thank everyone for joining. The purpose of today's call is to give you a quick run-through and make you aware of the new features and licensing options that have become available with the recent release of SignalPro version 9. If you have any questions, please do type them into the question pane at any time, and I'll get to them at the end of the presentation. I'm only going to spend about 30 minutes going through these items, but certainly, if you would like to get more in depth with any of the new features and options presented here, reach out to us anytime after the webinar. We're very excited about this release. It was a long time coming. We put in a lot of work with our customers and took a lot of feedback from design consultants, network operators, and sales engineers across various industries. We implemented the things we were told would make their jobs easier, and it is our hope we have accomplished that and you are excited about this release as well. We say changing the industry because we put things into the software, including new licensing options that haven't been offered before, that we truly believe are game changers. So again, very excited to bring this release to you. Getting into it here, and the themes of version 9 really break into three categories. One is productivity. And some of the things we were hearing from customers, I'm sure the first item is one we can all relate to. The notion of not having enough time before a design is due. But we were also getting feedback that it seemed as though SignalPro was not utilizing the full potential of multi-core machines. The second theme is accuracy. Of course, consultants looking to win RFPs, as well as those who are held accountable to the designs turned into customers, and folks designing networks to determine the amount of hardware needed for deployments are looking for any way to increase the accuracy of a design. One way to do this has always been to get high-resolution data, but historically there have been limitations that have prevented the full utilization of high-res data. And finally, license flexibility. More and more customers have come to us and asked for short-term licensing due to unpredictable usage, seasonable variability, or sudden projects that require temporary licensing or modules, but don't justify the cost of a whole new license purchase. And so these are the main themes we were working with in incorporating a new feature set in SignalPro version 9 that would help engineers focus on productivity and growth. Now, getting into the product, the first thing to know about SignalPro version 9 is that studies run up to 3 times faster out of the box. And mic drop, that's it. That's the end of the webinar. Just kidding. Seriously, as the folks invest more and more into multi-core machines, we wanted to make sure the software is taking advantage of that. And so you will see a vast speed improvement in all of the area studies, as well as the TSB88 FCC contour studies and LTE studies. You will also see an improvement in the multi-point studies as well. Note that our LoRa and IoT studies were built natively on this upgraded study engine, so those studies will already be seeing the benefits of this upgrade. And again, the idea is making the software more efficient to streamline your processes and making sure you meet your deadlines comfortably. To put it succinctly, the program runs faster and it saves you time. And again, the idea is making the software more efficient to streamline your processes and making sure you meet your deadlines comfortably. Another new feature we're excited about here is this ability to run very large area studies. including those that cover entire states or even the entire country. In previous versions of SignalPro, study grids were limited to 5,000 by 5,000 points, which meant if you needed to run a study for a very large region, or if you were using high-resolution data, you would most likely have to run several studies, resetting the study grid each time and stitching those studies together outside of SignalPro. Obviously, this is not an ideal or the most productive situation. Now with version 9, the new study grid limitation is over 30,000 by 30,000 grid bins, large enough that it allows you to create these state and nationwide coverage maps in a single run, which is not only very cool, but obviously will save you a lot of time and heartache because now you can perform a single run no matter the size of a service area, rather than constantly resetting study grids and performing multiple runs for large study areas. The idea of running very large studies is also a nice segue into the next theme that I mentioned of version 9, accuracy. When running studies, especially those that cover large regions, we have become used to training speed for accuracy. In version 9, we've introduced the grid optimized radials calculation method, so this is no longer the case. Grid optimized radials is an automatic calculation that produces optimal radial lines to give you the best prediction accuracy. This extends all the way to study boundaries, even for these very large service areas. So at a basic level, if we were to think of a study in SignalPro as layers, we would have a layer of GIS data made of terrain elevation and land use data, then the layer of radial lines from the transmitters, then the study grid that you define. Now previously, when you ran a study, you did have the choice between this radial line method and the direct-to-grid method if you wanted a higher level of accuracy. But of course, the trade-off is the direct-to-grid method takes a significantly longer time to run the study. With the new grid optimized radial method of version 9, the radial density automatically increases as the study points get further from the transmitter, thereby increasing the prediction accuracy at longer distances, but it also minimizes the impact of increased computation time. So, what does this mean in a real-world application? What we see is that this method solves the problem in the most practical way while providing the most beneficial information. Because any prediction method you use is going to be accurate near a transmitter. It's at the edges of a network, particularly for these large service areas, where it becomes critical to see higher resolution study results, and where we're going to have to provide these answers for customers and such. So, the accuracy improvements in the program here will also keep you more productive in that the program makes these calculations efficiently. But perhaps more importantly, your deliverables are improving because of the enhancements to the accuracy at long distances. I'm going to go ahead and the graph you see there on the bottom right, I'll pull that up so we can take a look at it more closely. You can see there, when we take a look at it, it's depicting the absolute error in the prediction for the new grid optimized radial method versus traditional calculation methods. And as we move further from the transmitter, the new grid optimized radial is giving us more accurate results. The overall picture shows us that using the traditional method, the further we get from the transmitter, the more inaccurate our model becomes, whereas using the new grid optimized radial method, the average absolute error is more or less the same no matter how far away we are. But the proof is in the pudding, so let's go ahead and take a look at an actual study result. So this is a side-by-side of a traditional radial line method versus the new grid-optimized radials for a receive power at remote study here in Eugene, Oregon. And if you look at the edges of the study, the difference should become apparent. I would draw your attention particularly to this area over here that I'm circling with my mouse. Hopefully you can see that. You can see in the old radial line method example, we have much more of what I would describe as the smear effect. It's kind of just artifacts of the purple color that's depicting that particular signal level, which would be a weak signal level, smeared here in the hills, whereas in the grid optimized radial example, you can see it's much more detailed, resolute, and it's giving you a much more realistic picture of real world coverage out there at the system edge. So what I've talked about thus far is a very quick rundown of some of the new features found when you're actually using SignalPro. So what I'd like to do now is move on to the third theme that I mentioned of the new software, which is licensing flexibility and the options that now come with our new platform, Cirrus Licensing. Historically, you have had essentially one choice when it came to licensing RF software, and that is a perpetual license. Now you have several ways in which to license SignalPro based on your needs and application, including cloud-based network licenses that bundle access to our high-resolution data. So let's go ahead and run through these license options. First, the perpetual hybrid option allows users with long-term engineering software needs to surge up licensing on demand during busy times without the added costs of procuring all new licensing. So this is very similar to what you have today in that it's a permanent license. It differs in that historically, if you had a project in which you needed to add users or modules, that meant buying a new perpetual license. Now, with the perpetual hybrid model, you can simply surge up for certain projects, or during busy periods or busy seasons, you can add a temporary license or module for a month or 2 months, whatever you may need, and that saves you the cost of having to purchase a whole new license. Second, the monthly lease option is a nice solution for short-term projects and RFP responses. The monthly lease option provides licensing without the big upfront costs. You get an immediate return on your investment after winning a contract, and you can easily add users and modules as needed. I want to emphasize that with this licensing option, there's no long-term commitment. You can start and stop the licensing whenever you wish. So it may be a value not only for short-term projects, but if your usage is very sporadic. If you need to use SignalPro for a couple of months and then you put it away for a month or two at a time before your next project, for example. And finally, the prepaid days per year license is the most flexible option, as it allows users to pay for upfront usage days that they can then use at any point throughout the year. Prepaid days per year licensing even provides an add-on module that is swappable based on project demand. So this is indeed similar to the old cell phone prepaid plans that we used to know. This is good for folks who know they have a need for SignalPro, but it's hard to predict when exactly they are going to need it. It's good for consultants and network managers who just need to check in on projects from time to time. There's a ton of value in this licensing option. We've actually already had several customers that have utilized this particular licensing option. Now, with the Cirrus licensing platform overall, there's a couple of key benefits for both the monthly and prepaid options that I'd like to focus on for a minute. So first, with these licenses, SignalPro can now be run in the cloud, that you can tell obviously by the super cool cloud icon there on this slide. You can run it on both AWS or Azure. So of course you can eliminate your hardware key and reduce your IT spend. You'll also improve your engineering uptime by offloading your compute time to the cloud, which means local machines can then be used for productivity and billable hours. It's also important to note that the same licenses can be checked out for use in the field or if an engineer is traveling. And finally, you can further take advantage of the productivity improvements made in version 9 by scaling up cores in a virtual machine. The second benefit that's applicable to Cirrus licensing is data. As mentioned, our new licensing options include access to our high-resolution data, which is a complete database solution that includes high-resolution clutter, terrain, 2D vectors, and demographics. So the tile selector application provides instant access to high-resolution data. It is an application that displays a map of the world divided into tiles, as you see here. You simply click on a tile representing a service area and select the data you need. You then download the data, and it's ready to use in SignalPro immediately for any project you are working on. Now, instant access to data such as this has some really obvious benefits, such as customer retention by being able to meet their needs and answer their questions immediately. Another thing we've learned is that this level of responsiveness gives you a leg up when it comes to RFPs because, of course, there are many times in which you only have a couple of days to respond to an RFP. And this saves you the time of researching, sourcing, and converting data. You may even respond to more RFPs knowing that you have data available immediately for any location in the US or Canada. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the alternatives because a lot of folks have become accustomed to using free data downloaded from government sites like the USGS. But this quote-unquote free data comes at a cost. In working with our customers, we have found that on average, you can expect to spend 1 man-day per service area on each database because you have to download, reproject the data, and convert it for use in SignalPro. So to get both clutter and terrain data for one project, you're looking at 2 man-days. That's a best-case scenario because there is also the cost in having the software to reproject the data. You have to have the knowledge to perform the reprojection and conversion, which can mean training and the associated training costs. And of course, you have to hope that something doesn't go wrong in the conversion and have to start all over again. Dare I say that all of us who have tried to download and convert the USGS data have experienced this pain, and it is, quite frankly, the opposite of fun. And all of that I just mentioned is just the downloading and conversion process. That's not speaking at all about the manual manipulation and carving that has to happen on the back end because the data is inaccurate. And customers tell us to that end, on average, engineers are spending about 15 minutes per site carving inaccurate data into something that's passable and usable. So the bottom line to all of that is when you spend time downloading, converting, and carving inaccurate data, you are not just wasting time, but you are wasting engineering dollars that would be much better spent elsewhere. Cirrus gives you hybrid data made up of to 1 meter resolution clutter data, so it's very resolute and accurate. So this is an example of what it looks like as compared to the USGS data. So not only is it available immediately, but it is also saving you the time of having to manually carve or manipulate it. And it's going to give you that much more accurate results. Again, you can see in this example here of an area in Cincinnati, the difference between the hybrid clutter and the USGS data speaks for itself. So to sum up all of the items that I've spoken about so far, you can see in speaking about these items, including the improvements and the new features in SignalPro, the new flexible licensing options, the ability to run SignalPro in the cloud, and the instant access to high-resolution data, there are many benefits that will resonate across your organization. And the themes that I mentioned that I've spoken about, they come together to create these multiplicative benefits that give you increased design rigor because you can run higher resolution and faster studies due to increasing the limits of study grid size in the improved study engine in SignalPro. You are lowering your cost overall and throughout your entire life cycle of network designs and ownerships of SignalPro because you can simply add licensing when needed on a short-term temporary basis or project basis when needed while offloading computation to the cloud, and grow your business by swapping out modules and utilizing the prepaid licensing rather than having to wait for projects that justify the cost of purchasing software and modules, and finally be more productive. Faster studies over larger areas means more time spent on other billable projects. And to show you exactly what I mean and how this might apply to you, very quickly, let's run through a couple of quick case studies. First, let's consider the benefit of Cirrus licensing with the Signal engine upgrade, solving the problem of the steep cost of onboarding a new engineer. Historically, a scenario like this might cost a firm upward of $35,000 in hardware and software once they purchase the perpetual license of RF planning software in a new machine. Perhaps more importantly to consider, you would have to win several jobs in order to recoup that cost. Now you can take advantage of the monthly or prepaid license, pay a fraction of the cost of a perpetual license, and offload the IT cost to the cloud and be back in the black after winning just one job. The quote you see there is real. I just wasn't sure if I had permission to attribute it to the person, the company that said it, so sorry about that. And one more quick case study to consider here, considering the ability to run very large study grids in conjunction with the study engine upgrade, and how this addresses the problem of having to move study grids and the inherent trade-off between size and accuracy. Now with the improvements of version 9, study grids can match the resolution of your databases, set and forget and let them run regardless of the size of your service area. And the quote here really says it all. Our design workflow requires regularly moving the study grid between areas of interest. SignalPro 9 has increased our productivity by at least 30% because of that. And before I wrap things up and take questions, I want to be clear that version 9 is currently available for those of you who are current customers with a valid support and maintenance agreement. If you have not had a chance to upgrade to version 9, you can do so by using the in-app updater of SignalPro in the help menu. Check for program updates. If you are having any issues with this, please do reach out to support. And if you are not a current customer and wish to upgrade to version 9, you may reach out to myself. You can reach out to EDX or our sales staff, and we can help out. And my contact information is here if you wish to speak to me directly, or if you have any follow-up questions. And I know this was a very quick run through. As I stated, I just wanted to make everybody aware of the new items that are available in version 9 and the new licensing options in particular. And then we can discuss those items in more depth if you wish. So again, feel free to contact. And if there are any questions, I will be more than happy to take those at this time.
Yes, Bob, we do have a couple questions that came in here. So you said the new licensing options include access to the high resolution data. So what does that include, or how much data will we have access to?
Right. So with the new licensing options, if one utilizes either the monthly licensing or the prepaid days per year licensing options, those come bundled with the high resolution data for the entire US or all of Canada, bundled as part of those licensing options.
Okay. Another question that just came in, is training available for version 9?
Training is always available at any time. We have several different training options. We have our quarterly 2-day training seminar that we hold in Eugene, Oregon. Our 2020 schedule should be posted on our website, but reach out to us if you want to know that schedule. The next one is mid-January, and we have custom trainings that we hold. We can do those at your location or our location. We also do custom training online with a live trainer. So we can do training at any time. But I want to be clear that, you know, like I keep saying, version 9 is a game changer, right? Because there is so many new things in the software that will streamline your process and lend to your productivity and growth within your organization. But the user interface of the software didn't really change, right? You're not going to need to be trained if you are already familiar with SignalPro. You're not going to need to be trained to use version 9. If you're a current customer, maybe you need to call into support to learn about these new features. You'll be good to go. You shouldn't need to undergo an entire training just to learn how to use version 9, if that's the question.
Yeah. So also another question here on the monthly licensing. So are modules able to be added to the monthly licensing? And if so, and we switch to one of the new licensing options, can we also run old projects?
Yes and yes. So yeah, if you're a current SignalPro user and you have your old projects, and if you migrate over to one of the new licensing options, you can absolutely still run your old projects seamlessly, no problem at all. And yes, one of the ideas with the new licensing options was making it easier to add modules, easier to add users as needed, because we recognize that there's a lot of variability in usage, and we wanted to make it easier for folks. We wanted to accommodate that easier. You have busy times, we wanted to be able to augment your staff easier and better. You have big projects that come up, you have windfall opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. One of the nice things with the monthly licensing in the modules is we have separated the costs between users and modules. If you need to add modules, you add them at the cost, and then all of your users have access to it, and that's it. Historically with RF software, you've had to purchase a module at set price per user, and that's just not the case anymore with the monthly licensing. If you purchase a module, then that's it. All of your users have access to it, if that makes sense. We're trying to simplify the entire process.
Right. So I have a question here on the grid optimized radials. Does the azimuth increment for a particular site matter when you're utilizing grid optimized radials?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
So when predicting using grid optimized radials, does the azimuth increment setting matter for utilizing grid optimized radials?
No.
And then another one on the monthly is if you have a current perpetual license with a physical dongle key, is it possible to switch to the monthly or to the cloud licensing?
Yes, we're working with our customers to migrate from perpetual to monthly to the prepaid, whichever model they wish to migrate to. We're offering trade-in credits, those sort of thing. I would encourage anyone who is a current customer with the hardware key to contact us. Yeah, and we can talk about trade-ins and things of that nature.
Well, perfect. That's the questions I have for you from our audience.
Okay. Well, again, my information is on the screen, and I would encourage anyone with any further questions to contact us at any time, and I thank everybody for joining.
Thanks again for joining. And again, if there's any questions, Bob's information is here on the screen, and you can also reach out to support@edx.com for any further information. Thanks for joining, and you have a great day.